Picture this. A 15-year-old girl standing in the heart of a crowded airport, her heart soaring with the promise of reuniting with her mom. But in a single, shattering moment, a stranger's prejudice turns her joy into fear. A phone call to the police, a lie spun from hatred, and a family thrust into a battle they never saw coming. What unfolds next is a gripping saga of courage, betrayal, and secrets that unravel all the way to the halls of power. Stay with us, because this story of one teen's fight for justice will leave you breathless, and it's a tale you won't believe until you hear it all. The late November chill seeped through the glass walls of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, where 15-year-old Isabella Morales stood near the arrivals gate, her dark curls tucked under a knit beanie. Her breath fogged faintly in the cool air as she bounced on her toes, her hazel eyes scanning the crowd. Today wasn't just any day, it was the day she'd finally see her mom, Elena Morales, after 3 long months apart. But what Isabella couldn't have known was that in mere minutes, a single act of prejudice would ignite a chain of events that would shake her world to its core, expose a scandal within the IRS, and thrust her family into a fight for justice that would echo across the nation. Isabella had always loved airports, the symphony of rolling suitcases, the staccato of gate announcements, the fleeting glimpses of travelers from every walk of life. It was a place where stories converged, where the world felt boundless. To her, airports were a symbol of connection, especially tied to her mother, a high-ranking official in the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Isabella didn't fully grasp the intricacies of Elena's job. She knew it involved taxes and important meetings, but to her, Elena was the woman who taught her to braid her hair, who danced with her to salsa music in the kitchen, and who always had a hug ready, no matter how busy she was. Today, Elena was flying in from Washington, D.C., where she'd been leading a task force grappling with President Donald Trump's controversial new tax policies. The tariffs and tax hikes, rolled out in early 2025, had sparked global outrage, with trade partners like Canada and Mexico decrying their impact on supply chains, while American small businesses struggled under new compliance burdens. Elena's team was tasked with ensuring the IRS enforced these laws fairly, but the political firestorm had made her job a lightning rod for criticism. Isabella, oblivious to the complexities, was simply counting the seconds until she could wrap her arms around her mom. Her dad, Javier Morales, a community college professor, stood beside her, his glasses fogging slightly as he checked his phone. His economics classes had been consumed with debates about the tariffs, with students dissecting their ripple effects on Chicago's manufacturing sector. "Flight 392 from D.C. is 5 minutes out," he said, ruffling Isabella's hair. "You ready, Bella?" Isabella's braces gleamed as she grinned. "I've been ready since summer, Dad. I even made Mom a playlist for the ride home. Bad Bunny, Shakira, the works." Their plan was quintessentially Chicago. Pick up Elena, grab deep dish pizza at Lou Malnati's, and spend the evening catching up over hot cocoa and old family photos. It was the kind of simple joy that had become rare with Elena's demanding schedule. As they waited, Isabella's eyes wandered across the terminal. The place buzzed with holiday travelers, families lugging suitcases, business people tapping away on laptops, and a group of teens snapping selfies by a Christmas display. Her gaze landed on a man in a crisp gray suit standing near a Starbucks kiosk. He was middle-aged with thinning hair and a stern expression, a badge clipped to his belt that read, IRS. His eyes darted across the crowd, lingering on a group of Latina women with a mix of suspicion and disdain. Isabella noticed him muttering something to a barista, who shrugged uncomfortably. A knot formed in her stomach, but she brushed it off, refocusing on the arrivals board. Little did she know that man, IRS agent Richard Callahan, was about to turn her day into a nightmare. As the board flashed "landed" for Flight 392, passengers began spilling into the terminal. Isabella spotted her mom instantly. Elena, poised and radiant in a navy blazer, her warm smile cutting through the crowd like a beacon. "Mom!" Isabella shouted, sprinting forward, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Elena dropped her carry-on and enveloped Isabella in a hug, her laughter mingling with her daughter's squeals. "Mija, you're taller every time I see you," she said, kissing Isabella's forehead. Javier joined them, pulling Elena into a kiss. "Welcome home," he murmured, his voice thick with relief. For a moment, the Morales family was a perfect bubble of warmth in the chaotic terminal, but their joy was shattered by a sharp voice. "Excuse me," Agent Callahan barked, striding toward them with a purposeful gait. His eyes were locked on Isabella, his face a mask of contempt. "This is a secure area. You can't loiter here." Isabella froze, her arms still around her mom. They were standing in the public arrivals area surrounded by other families, nowhere near any restricted zone. Confusion clouded her face. "We're just picking up my mom," she said softly, her voice barely audible. Callahan's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "Don't get smart with me, kid. I've seen your type causing trouble around here. Move along, or I'll call security." Javier stepped forward, his tone calm but edged with steel. "Sir, we're not in a restricted area. We're waiting for my wife, who just arrived. There's no issue here." Callahan barely glanced at Javier, his focus fixed on Isabella. "I know trouble when I see it," he snapped. "People like you think you can just wander wherever you want." The phrase "people like you" landed like a slap, its racial undertones unmistakable. A few travelers slowed, sensing the tension, their whispers rippling through the crowd. Elena's face hardened, her years of navigating prejudice in government halls fueling her response. "What exactly do you mean by people like you?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with fire. As a Latina who'd risen through the ranks of a male-dominated field, she'd faced her share of microaggressions, but seeing her daughter targeted ignited a fierce protectiveness. Callahan faltered for a split second, as if realizing he'd crossed a line. But instead of retreating, he doubled down, pulling out his phone with a flourish. "I'm calling the police," he declared, his voice dripping with self-righteous authority. "I'm reporting a suspicious individual in the arrivals area. Potential threat to airport security." Isabella's heart pounded, her palms clammy. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet here she was, labeled a threat, simply for being a Latina teen in a public space. Her eyes darted to her parents, who stood united but visibly shaken. Javier's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists, while Elena's grip on Isabella's shoulder tightened, grounding her. A small crowd gathered, some murmuring in support, others pulling out phones to record. Within minutes, 2 Chicago PD officers approached, their expressions neutral but wary. "What's going on here?" asked Officer Daniels, a broad-shouldered man with a notepad in hand. His partner, Officer Ruiz, a young Latina woman, scanned the scene with sharp eyes. Callahan launched into a distorted narrative, his voice booming with confidence. "This girl was loitering near a secure entrance," he said, pointing at Isabella. "I asked her to move, and she got defiant. I'm an IRS agent, and I've seen this kind of behavior before. Kids sneaking around, possibly up to no good." Isabella's mouth fell open, her voice trembling. "That's not true. I was just waiting for my mom." Elena stepped forward, her presence commanding. "My daughter is not a threat. We're standing in a public area, and this man is fabricating a story based on nothing but his own bias. I demand to know why an IRS agent is harassing a 15-year-old Officer Daniels raised a hand, signaling for calm. "Ma'am, sir, let's take a step back. Can you tell me your side?" Javier recounted the events, his voice steady, but laced with frustration. "We were waiting for my wife, who just arrived from D.C. This man approached us out of nowhere, accused my daughter of being in a restricted area, and made racially charged comments. We've done nothing wrong." Callahan scoffed, adjusting his tie. "I'm just doing my job. Airports are high-security zones, especially with all the new regulations coming out of Washington. The IRS is cracking down on fraud, and I have every right to question suspicious behavior." The mention of new regulations caught Elena's attention. As a Treasury official, she'd been immersed in the fallout of Trump's 2025 tax policies, tariffs on imports, corporate tax restructuring, and heightened IRS audits that had sparked protests from small businesses and accusations of overreach. The policies had inflamed tensions, with some IRS agents reportedly using their authority to target vulnerable communities under the guise of compliance. Was Callahan exploiting this climate to justify his prejudice? Before the situation could escalate further, Elena reached into her purse and produced her government ID, the Treasury seal gleaming under the terminal lights. "Elena Morales, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. My daughter is not a criminal, and I'd like to know why an IRS agent is abusing his authority to harass a teenager in a public space." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of surprise and approval. Officer Daniels examined the ID, his eyebrows lifting slightly. Officer Ruiz leaned in, her expression shifting from neutral to concerned. "Ma'am, we weren't aware of your position," Ruiz said. "We'll get this sorted out." Callahan's face reddened, his composure cracking. "Your title doesn't change the fact that this area is sensitive," he snapped, ignoring the growing unease around him. "I'm within my rights to report anything I deem suspicious." "Suspicious?" Elena repeated, her voice rising with controlled fury. "My daughter was standing here waiting for me. The only thing suspicious is your behavior, targeting a teenager based on nothing but your own prejudice." The crowd grew louder, some nodding in agreement, others recording the exchange. A middle-aged man in a Cubs cap spoke up, his voice firm. "I saw the whole thing. The girl wasn't doing anything. This guy just walked up and started yelling at her." A young woman with a stroller chimed in. "He was staring at other Latino families earlier. I noticed it when I was getting coffee. It's like he was looking for someone to pick on." Officer Daniels turned to Callahan, his tone sharpening. "Sir, do you have any evidence to support your claims? Security footage can clarify if this young lady was in a restricted area." Callahan's confidence wavered, his eyes darting to the crowd. I know what I saw," he stammered. "She was too close to the staff entrance. You can't trust these people to tell the truth." The blatant racism in his words silenced the crowd. Isabella's eyes welled with tears, but she held her head high, drawing strength from her parents' unwavering presence. Javier's voice was low but firm. "You've crossed a line. This isn't about security. It's about your bias." Officer Ruiz stepped in, her voice calm but authoritative. Mr. Callahan, I suggest you come with us to discuss this further. We'll review the footage and take statements." She turned to the Morales family, her eyes softening. "We're sorry for the inconvenience. We'll document everything and ensure this is handled properly." As Callahan was escorted away, still muttering about protocol and overreach, the Morales family stood together, shaken but resolute. Isabella clung to her mom, her excitement for the reunion replaced by a gnawing sense of injustice. Why did it take her mother's title to make people listen? What about the countless others who faced this kind of treatment without a powerful advocate? The ride home was quiet, the Chicago skyline fading into a dusky haze. Isabella stared out the window, replaying Callahan's words. "People like you." The phrase echoed in her mind, a reminder of the hatred she hadn't asked to face. "Mom," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "why do some people assume I'm a problem just because of how I look?" Elena's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles paling. "It's not about you, mija. It's about their ignorance. Racism doesn't make sense. It's a poison some people carry. But we're stronger than that. We'll make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Javier reached over to squeeze Isabella's hand, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. "You were brave today, Bella. We're going to fight this, not just for you, but for everyone who's been treated this way." Back at their cozy bungalow in Logan Square, the Morales family tried to salvage their evening. The smell of deep dish pizza filled the air, but the mood was heavy. Photos of Isabella's childhood, her first soccer game, her quinceañera, a trip to Puerto Rico with her abuelita, lined the walls, a stark contrast to the hostility she'd faced. Over dinner, Elena broke the silence, her voice steady but resolute. "We can't let this go. Callahan's behavior isn't just personal, it's a symptom of something bigger. If he's using his IRS badge to intimidate people, what else is he doing?" Javier nodded, pushing his glasses up. "And with all the talk about Trump's new taxes, the IRS is under more scrutiny than ever. People are already frustrated. Agents like Callahan could be exploiting that tension to target minorities. I've seen it in my classes. Students whose families own small businesses are terrified of audits." Isabella pushed her plate away, her appetite gone. "What if he comes after us again? He was so angry, like he hated me for no reason." Elena's eyes softened, but her resolve was ironclad. "We'll handle it, Bella. I have connections at the Treasury, and we'll make sure this is investigated. But I need you to know you're safe. We're in this together." The next morning, Elena contacted her colleagues at the Treasury Department, including the Inspector General's office, which oversees IRS misconduct. As a key figure in shaping tax policy, she knew the stakes were high. Trump's tariffs had already sparked protests from small businesses, with Chicago's manufacturing and retail sectors hit hard by rising costs. Any hint of corruption within the IRS could fuel public distrust, especially when social media was ablaze with stories of aggressive audits targeting minority communities. Elena provided a detailed account of the airport incident, including bystander videos that had begun circulating online, tagged with hashtags like #Justice for Isabella and #Stop IRS Abuse. Meanwhile, Isabella faced her own battles at Lincoln Park High School. The airport incident had gone viral, amplified by TikTok and Twitter outrage over Callahan's racism. Her classmates were divided. Some offered support, sharing her story with messages of solidarity, while others whispered that she was lucky to have a powerful mom. One boy, Ethan, a known troublemaker, cornered her in the cafeteria. "Bet you made it all up to get famous," he sneered. "Your mom probably paid that guy to act racist so you could play the victim." Isabella's best friend, Mia, a fiery girl with a knack for debate, jumped in. "Are you serious, Ethan? She was humiliated in front of everyone. You think she wanted that?" Ethan shrugged, tossing a fry into his mouth. "I'm just saying it's convenient her mom's some big shot. Most people don't get away with causing a scene like that." Isabella's chest tightened, her anger flaring. She wanted to scream that she hadn't caused anything, that Callahan had targeted her for no reason. Instead, she took a deep breath, her voice steady but sharp. "You don't get it. If my mom wasn't who she is, I could have been arrested or worse. Think about that before you judge me." The encounter left her shaken but determined. That afternoon, she started a private TikTok account to share her story, not for fame, but to process her emotions and connect with others who'd faced similar discrimination. Her first video, a raw monologue about the airport incident, garnered thousands of views overnight, with comments from teens across the country sharing their own experiences of racial profiling. One girl from Texas wrote, "This happened to me at a mall. They called security because I looked suspicious. Thank you for speaking out." Back at the Treasury Department, Elena's report triggered a rapid response. The Inspector General's office uncovered troubling patterns. Callahan had a history of disproportionate audits targeting minority-owned businesses, often citing suspicious activity with little evidence. His actions aligned with broader concerns about the IRS under Trump's administration, where aggressive enforcement of new tax laws had led to accusations of bias against Latino, Black, and Asian communities. The tariffs, which raised costs for importers, had given agents like Callahan a pretext to scrutinize small businesses, many of which were owned by immigrants. Elena's task force was already grappling with the fallout of the tax policies, which had strained trade relations with Mexico and Canada, increased consumer prices, and sparked protests in cities like Chicago. The idea that an IRS agent was using his authority to harass citizens, potentially fueled by the same political rhetoric driving the tax debate, added a personal urgency to her work. She began to suspect Callahan was part of a larger network within the agency, exploiting the chaotic policy landscape for personal vendettas. As the investigation deepened, the Morales family received an anonymous letter in the mail. The handwriting was jagged, the message chilling. "Back off, or your daughter will pay the price. You can't hide behind your fancy title forever." Enclosed was a grainy photo of Isabella at school, taken from a distance, her backpack slung over one shoulder as she laughed with Mia. Terror gripped the family. Javier called the police, who traced the letter to a Chicago postmark but had no immediate leads. Elena, shaken but resolute, contacted the FBI, leveraging her Treasury connections to ensure the threat was taken seriously. The police increased patrols around their home, but the fear lingered. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside the window, felt like a potential threat. Isabella struggled to sleep, haunted by the photo. "Why is this happening?" she asked her mom one night, her voice breaking as they sat on the living room couch, a blanket draped over their shoulders. "All I did was stand there." Elena pulled her close, fighting back tears. "Some people lash out when they're exposed, but we're not backing down. Your voice matters, Bella, and we're going to make sure this stops." Determined to protect her family and expose Callahan's misconduct, Elena worked with the Inspector General to compile evidence. They discovered emails where Callahan boasted to colleagues about teaching lessons to certain types of taxpayers, alongside records of falsified audit reports that targeted Latino and Black business owners. The findings pointed to a small but dangerous clique within the IRS, emboldened by the political climate to abuse their power. The scandal gained traction when a whistleblower, a junior IRS analyst named Sarah Kim, came forward with damning documents. Sarah, a 28-year-old Korean American, had been troubled by Callahan's behavior for months. She contacted Elena directly, her voice trembling over the phone. "I couldn't stay silent anymore. What Callahan's doing isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. He's been manipulating audit data to target minority businesses, and his team is covering it up. With all the heat on the IRS because of the new tax laws, this could blow up." Sarah's documents revealed a pattern of corruption. Callahan's team had falsified compliance reports to justify audits, often bypassing oversight to harass small businesses. One case involved a Mexican-American restaurant owner whose business was nearly bankrupted by repeated audits, despite clean financials. The revelations pointed to a systemic issue, with Callahan's clique exploiting the IRS's heightened authority under Trump's tax reforms to target vulnerable communities. The media pounced on the story, linking Callahan's racism to broader criticisms of the IRS's role in enforcing controversial tax policies. Headlines screamed, "IRS corruption exposed," and "racial profiling under tax reform," with Isabella's airport encounter becoming a symbol of systemic injustice. Protesters gathered outside IRS offices in Chicago, chanting for accountability, while online petitions demanding Callahan's termination amassed millions of signatures. TikTok and Twitter exploded with hashtags like #Justice for Isabella, #IRSSCANDAL, and #Tax Fairness, amplifying the story to a global audience. The Morales family faced a crossroads. The public outcry offered some protection, but it also made them a target. Elena and Javier debated whether to go public with their story, fearing further retaliation. But Isabella, inspired by the support on TikTok, insisted on speaking out. "If we stay quiet, he wins," she said, her voice fierce despite the fear in her eyes. "I want people to know what happened, so it doesn't happen to anyone else." They agreed to a CNN interview, hoping public scrutiny would shield them. In a brightly lit studio, Isabella sat between her parents, her hands clasped tightly. The anchor, a seasoned journalist named Rachel Carter, asked, "Isabella, how did it feel to be targeted for no reason?" Isabella's voice wavered but grew stronger. "It was like I didn't belong, like I was a criminal just for being me. I keep thinking about all the people who go through this and don't have anyone to stand up for them. That's why I'm here, to make sure their voices are heard too," Elena added, her tone measured but powerful. "This isn't just about one agent. It's about a system that allows prejudice to fester. With the new tax laws putting pressure on everyone, we can't let people like Callahan exploit that chaos to hurt innocent people. The IRS is supposed to serve the public, not terrorize it." Javier chimed in, his professor's clarity shining through. "The tariffs and tax hikes have already hurt small businesses in Chicago. If agents are using their power to target minorities, it's not just unfair, it's a betrayal of everything this country stands for." The interview went viral, sparking debates about race, power, and the IRS's role in an increasingly polarized America. Callahan, now suspended without pay, lashed out on fringe social media platforms, claiming he was a victim of woke cancel culture and accusing the Morales family of fabricating the incident for political gain. His rants, filled with conspiracy theories about globalist elites and tax rebels, only fueled public outrage, with even his former supporters distancing themselves. But the danger wasn't over. One frigid December night, as snow blanketed Chicago, the Morales family's worst fears came true. The power in their home flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Javier, checking the breaker box in the basement, heard a thud against the front door. Heart racing, he peered through the peephole and saw a figure in a hooded jacket holding a crowbar. It was Callahan. "Isabella, stay upstairs!" Javier shouted, grabbing a baseball bat from the hall closet. Elena dialed 911, her voice trembling as she whispered their address. The door shuddered under Callahan's blows, splinters flying. "You ruined me!" he screamed, his voice raw with rage. "You think you can take my life and walk away? I'll show you what happens when you cross me." Isabella huddled in her room, clutching her phone, tears streaming down her face. She live-streamed the ordeal on TikTok, her shaky voice pleading for help. "Someone's trying to break into our house. It's the IRS guy from the airport. Please, we need help." The live stream spread like wildfire, alerting neighbors and amplifying the 911 call. Within minutes, comments flooded in. "Stay safe, Isabella." "Police are on the way. This is insane." A neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, saw the stream and rushed outside, banging on his own door to scare Callahan off. Sirens wailed as police cars converged on the Morales home, their red and blue lights cutting through the snow. Flashlights illuminated Callahan as he swung the crowbar one last time, the door buckling but holding. Officers tackled him to the ground, cuffing him as he shouted incoherently about justice and betrayal. Inside, the Morales family clung to each other, the sound of sirens a lifeline in the chaos. The front door was battered but intact, a testament to their resilience. Officer Ruiz approached, her face grim but reassuring. "He's in custody. We'll make sure he doesn't come near you again. Your daughter's live stream helped us get here faster." She hesitated, then added, "I'm Latina too." "This hits close to home. We're with you." The aftermath was a whirlwind. Callahan's arrest dominated news cycles, with pundits dissecting how his actions reflected deeper issues within the IRS and the broader political landscape. The Treasury Department, under pressure, launched a comprehensive review of IRS practices, uncovering additional cases of bias in audit selections. Elena's task force proposed reforms to ensure fair enforcement of the new tax laws, earning bipartisan support as a way to restore public trust. Isabella's TikTok live stream, viewed by over 10 million people, became a rallying cry for justice. She received messages from people worldwide, sharing stories of discrimination and thanking her for her courage. At school, her classmates organized a walkout to protest racial profiling, chanting, "No more hate," as they marched through the snowy streets of Lincoln Park. Mia, ever the organizer, designed posters with Isabella's face and the hashtag #, Justice for Isabella, which spread to schools across Chicago. The legal proceedings were swift but grueling. Callahan faced charges of attempted burglary, stalking, making terroristic threats, and federal charges for falsifying IRS records. In a packed Chicago courtroom, Isabella took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the terror of that snowy night. "I just wanted to see my mom," she said, her eyes locking with the judge's. but he made me feel like I didn't deserve to be there, like I didn't deserve to be safe. Elena testified about the systemic implications, her expertise lending weight to her words. Callahan's actions weren't isolated. They reflect a culture of unchecked power within the IRS, exacerbated by the current political climate. We need reform to protect the public, not punish it. Javier spoke of the emotional toll, his voice breaking as he described Isabella's nightmares. She's 15. She should be worrying about homework, not whether someone's going to break into our home because of her skin color. Sarah Kim, the whistleblower, also testified, her courage earning her a standing ovation from the gallery. Her evidence, hundreds of falsified reports, was damning, painting Callahan as the ringleader of a corrupt clique. The judge, a stern woman with decades on the bench, delivered a scathing verdict, sentencing Callahan to 10 years in prison with no parole. Your actions were not only criminal, but a betrayal of the public trust, she said. This court stands with the Morales family and all those you sought to harm. As Callahan was led away, his face a mask of defeat, Isabella felt a weight lift. The victory was bittersweet. She knew the scars of that night would linger, but she also knew her voice had sparked change. The IRS implemented mandatory anti-bias training, and Elena's reforms gained traction, ensuring that tax enforcement would prioritize fairness over prejudice. Several of Callahan's colleagues faced disciplinary action, and Sarah Kim was promoted for her bravery, becoming a mentor for young analysts. For the Morales family, healing was a slow journey. They installed a state-of-the-art security system complete with cameras and motion sensor lights, but the real restoration came from community support. Neighbors brought tamales and empanadas, classmates sent cards, and strangers donated to a fund for Isabella's college education. Mr. Rodriguez, the neighbor who'd intervened, became a regular at their dinner table, sharing stories of his own family's struggles with discrimination. One quiet evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Isabella shared a new TikTok video. "This is for everyone who's ever felt invisible," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Your story matters. Don't let hate silence you. We're stronger together." Elena and Javier watched, tears in their eyes. "You're changing the world, Bella," Javier said, pulling her into a hug. Isabella smiled, her eyes shining with hope. "We're changing it together." The ripple effects were profound. The IRS scandal prompted congressional hearings, with Elena testifying about the need for oversight to prevent abuse. Her reforms, dubbed the Morales Plan, became a model for fair tax enforcement, easing tensions caused by Trump's policies. Chicago's Latino community rallied, launching voter drives and advocacy groups to combat systemic racism. Isabella, now a reluctant activist, spoke at a youth conference, her story inspiring a new generation to fight for justice. In a world rocked by division, where tax policies spark global debates and prejudice hides behind badges, the Morales family stood tall. Their story, born from a single act of hatred, became a beacon of hope, proving that courage and unity can triumph over fear. If this moved you, don't let it end here. Share Isabella's journey, stand against injustice, and let's build a world where no one is judged for who they are. Hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories that inspire change. Together, we can make a difference, one voice at a time.